the heiress who hid her name in a bakery apron. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had just started to fall over the narrow streets of Willow Creek, tapping softly against the bakery window where Elena Whitmore stood in her flour-stained apron. To the customers who came for warm croissants and morning coffee, she was simply Elena, the quiet girl who worked too hard and smiled too little. No one knew that behind that simple apron was the missing heiress of the Whitmore fortune, a woman running from a name that had once bought her everything and cost her peace. As thunder rolled in the distance, a dark sedan stopped outside the bakery. A tall man in a black coat stepped through the door, his shoes leaving wet prints on the wooden floor. He looked out of place among the scent of sugar and bread, his expression too sharp, too polished. "Miss Whitmore," he said quietly, and her hands froze midair, a dust of flour falling from her fingers. "I do not go by that name anymore," she whispered. "You should," the man replied, pulling a folder from his coat. "Because your father's will has been executed. To secure your inheritance and the foundation your mother built, you must be legally married within 30 days. For a long moment, Elena just stared, the noise of the cafe fading beneath the rush of her pulse. Married? She had left that world, the boardrooms, the photographers, the whispered deals. "Find someone suitable," the man continued, "or the board will take everything, your mother's charity included." After he left, she stood in silence, the hum of the ovens filling the room like a heartbeat. Her eyes drifted to the counter where Noah Carter was closing up for the night. He was a local baker, his forearms dusted with flour, his eyes warm and honest. He lived in the small apartment above the bakery, working double shifts to pay off the debts his late father had left behind. He was the kind of man who fixed things himself, who stayed late to help when deliveries ran long, and who never once asked her about her past. And in that moment, something reckless sparked inside her. If she needed a husband, even a pretend one, why not choose someone who knew nothing about money, fame, or power? Someone who might see her as human. That night, she waited until Noah was locking the front door. "Noah," she said softly, and he turned, brushing his hands on a towel. "Yeah, Lena?" She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "I need to ask you something crazy. Would you marry me?" He blinked, stunned. "I am sorry, what?" "I mean a contract marriage," she rushed to explain. "It would help me keep something important, me mother's foundation, and I can pay off your debts, all of them. It is just 6 months, on paper. After that, we walk away." Noah stared at her like she had spoken another language. "You are serious?" She nodded. "Dead serious." He laughed once, incredulous. "Lena, I do not even have a suit, let alone a reason to marry anyone." She met his gaze, her tone quiet but steady. "You would be saving me. And maybe yourself." The air between them hung heavy, filled with the scent of bread and rain. Finally, Noah exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know this is insane, right?" "Completely," she said. "But I think you are the only person I can trust." His eyes softened, that gentle, grounded look that had made her feel safe since the first day they met. "All right," he said at last, half smiling. "If we are doing this, we are doing it right. But you will have to tell me everything you are hiding." Elena hesitated, then extended her flour-dusted hand. "Deal." Their fingers touched warm against the cold night air, and for a second, neither of them spoke. Outside, the rain turned into snow, soft and quiet, as if sealing the promise neither of them understood yet. What began as a contract would soon become something else entirely. Something real. The morning after their strange agreement, the rain had cleared but the air still smelled like damp flour and coffee. Elena arrived early, tying her apron as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But when she saw Noah already waiting by the counter with 2 mugs of coffee and a nervous half-smile, her heart gave a small, unexplainable jolt. "Morning, wife Tobe," he said softly, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. She chuckled despite herself. "We are really doing this, huh?" He nodded, sliding a steaming mug toward her. "We have 30 days to convince your family's lawyers that I am a suitable husband and not some guy who burns muffins for a living." She smirked. "You do burn muffins." He shrugged. "Then we have a bigger problem than I thought." They both laughed, but beneath the humor was tension neither could ignore. Later that day, they sat at the worn wooden table in the back of the bakery and went through the document the lawyer had left. It was simple but merciless. A real marriage license, a 6-month term, public appearances, and a shared residence. "You will have to move in with me," she said, half apologetic. Noah blinked. "Into the Whitmore mansion?" "No," she corrected, "into my mother's old townhouse. It is quieter, less suspicious, and the press has forgotten it exists." He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "You have really thought this through." "It was either this or watch everything she built disappear," she replied, her tone softening. "That foundation fed hundreds of families. It is all I have left that feels honest." He looked at her for a long time, seeing not the heiress who once appeared in glossy magazines but a tired woman fighting to keep something good alive. "All right," he said. "Let us make this official." The following afternoon, they stood in front of a sleepy county clerk who barely looked up from her computer. No flowers, no vows, no family, just a signature and the mechanical stamp of approval. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Carter," the clerk said flatly. As they stepped outside, the winter sun caught in Elena's hair, and Noah realized she was smiling for the first time since he met her. "Now what?" he asked. "Now," she said, tucking the folded marriage certificate into her bag, "we make them believe it." Their first appearance as a couple was at the Whitmore Foundation's Winter Gala, glittering event filled with people who had once whispered about Elena's disappearance. The ballroom shimmered under golden lights, and a string quartet played something elegant that only made Noah feel more out of place. He tugged at the borrowed tuxedo collar and muttered, "If I drop this champagne tray, do you think they will revoke our marriage?" Elena shot him a look that was half amusement, half warning. "Just smile. And do not trip." He offered his arm with mock gallantry. "After you, Mrs. Carter." The crowd turned when she entered. Conversations paused, glasses stilled. The missing Whitmore heiress had returned, and on her arm was a man no one recognized. Cameras flashed, reporters murmured. Noah leaned in and whispered, "Smile, remember?" She exhaled and smiled. The next hours blurred into polite handshakes and shallow compliments. But somewhere between introductions, a board member named Gregory Vaughn cornered them with a cold grin. "So this is the man you married, Elena? A baker?" Noah tensed, but Elena's hand found his. "Yes," she said evenly. "A baker who understands hard work and honesty, which is more than I can say for most of this room." Gregory scoffed. "Romantic. But I wonder how long this fairy tale will last." Noah looked him dead in the eye. "As long as the bread keeps rising," he said, deadpan. A ripple of laughter spread through the nearby guests, diffusing the tension. When Gregory walked away, Elena whispered, "Thank you." Noah smiled. "For what?" "For making them laugh instead of watching me drown." He squeezed her hand gently. "Teamwork, remember?" For the first time that night, she believed it. Hours later, after the last guest left and the music faded, they stood on the empty balcony overlooking the city lights. The air was cold, but neither moved away. "You were amazing tonight," Noah said quietly. She turned to him, eyes soft under the glow. "I just followed your lead." For a moment, the contract, the money, the lies, all of it felt distant. There was only the sound of their breathing, the city humming below, and something real beginning to rise between them, fragile as dough and just as alive. Winter faded slowly into the first days of spring, but inside the old townhouse, time felt stuck between duty and something dangerously close to comfort. Elena and Noah had fallen into a rhythm neither of them expected. Every morning he made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and every night she brought home papers from the foundation, spreading them across the kitchen table while he kneaded dough nearby. The routine was simple, safe, and almost real. "You work too much," he said one night, rolling his sleeves as he shaped a loaf of bread. "You bake too much," she shot back. "Touché," he replied, smiling. There were moments like that, light, effortless, where they forgot they were pretending. One afternoon, Elena invited Noah to accompany her to a meeting with the board of trustees. He wore the same black suit from the gala, the one that still smelled faintly of vanilla and oven heat. When they entered the conference room, whispers followed. The men at the table straightened their ties, the women exchanged knowing looks. Noah stayed close beside her, saying nothing until one of the directors smirked and said, "So, this is your husband. Tell us, Mr. Carter, how does it feel to trade dough for dividends?" Noah's smile did not falter. "Honestly? Dough is easier to manage. At least it rises when treated right." A few stifled laughs circled the room. Even Elena had to hide a smile behind her hand. After the meeting, she caught his arm outside the elevator. "You handled them perfectly." He shrugged. "You handle them every day." "I just followed your recipe." She stared at him, warmth flickering in her chest. "You know," she said softly, "you could probably run a company better than half of them." He grinned. "Only if the company smells like fresh bread." The elevator doors closed, and for a moment, their reflection in the mirrored wall looked startlingly like a real couple, comfortable, confident, completely unaware of the world watching. But the illusion cracked a week later. News broke online about the mysterious marriage license between the missing Whitmore heiress and an unknown baker. Headlines exploded: "Fake love or secret scandal." Paparazzi swarmed outside the bakery, cameras flashing like lightning. Noah tried to shield Elena as they pushed through the crowd. "Just keep your head down," he whispered. "They will get tired soon." But they did not. Within days, a tabloid released photos of them leaving the gala together with headlines accusing her of buying a husband to protect her inheritance. The board called an emergency session, demanding explanations. Elena stood before them, pale but proud, her wedding band glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. "This marriage is legal," she said, "and it is my personal matter, not the foundation's." Gregory Vaughn smirked from the end of the table. "Legal, yes. But believable? That is another story." He slid a folder toward her. Inside were surveillance photos, her meeting with the lawyer, the day the contract was signed. "Care to explain why your so-called husband was paid exactly the amount of his bakery debt 2 days after your wedding?" Elena froze. She remembered writing that check, thinking she was helping him, not realizing it could look like proof of fraud. "That was my decision," she said quietly. "And mine to defend." Afterward, she found Noah waiting outside the building, his jaw tight. "They think I married you for money," he said bitterly. "They think I am a liar." She reached for him, but he stepped back. "Noah, please. I was trying to protect you. By making it look like I am for sale?" His voice cracked, raw. "You should have told me." The city noise filled the space between them. She whispered, "I am sorry." He turned away. "So am I." That night, Elena returned alone to the townhouse. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and emptiness. On the counter, she found a note in his handwriting: "I need time to breathe." She stared at it until the words blurred. Outside, the rain began again, steady and relentless, the same as the night everything started. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the weight of what she had built and what she was losing. Somewhere in the city, Noah walked the quiet streets, replaying her voice in his head. For the first time since their deal began, the contract meant nothing. What hurt now was real. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between them stretched wider than the city itself. Noah buried himself in work, baking until dawn, the smell of burnt sugar clinging to his clothes. The bakery no longer felt warm without her laughter echoing through the walls. Customers asked where she had gone, and he would only shrug, saying she was busy with the foundation. Elena, meanwhile, attended meeting after meeting, her face calm but her eyes hollow. The tabloids still hunted her, their words sharper than knives. Heiress buys love. Baker cashes out. She stopped reading the headlines, but their sting remained. One night, she returned to the townhouse and found the kitchen dark, the counter bare. The note he had left was still there, folded neatly beside the cold coffee pot. She touched it like a wound that refused to heal. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Gregory Vaughn. The board meets tomorrow. You might want to prepare your defense. She stared at the text, her heart sinking. She knew what he was after: control of her mother's foundation. The fake marriage scandal was the perfect excuse to strip her of it. The next morning, she walked into the meeting with her head high. Gregory wasted no time. Elena Whitmore, he said loudly, so the reporters outside the glass doors could hear, your marriage has been deemed fraudulent. The board votes today to remove you as trustee of the foundation. Gasps rippled around the table. Elena took a slow breath. You can take my title, she said evenly, but you will not take my mother's work. I will fight you in every court if I have to. Gregory smiled thinly. Without your husband, you do not stand a chance. Where is he now? Still baking bread for sympathy? She ignored the jab, but her voice trembled. He is more honest than anyone in this room. The vote passed anyway. By noon, she was no longer trustee. Cameras flashed as she walked out of the building, reporters shouting her name, asking if the marriage had been a lie. She said nothing. Her car drove her back to the empty townhouse, where she sat on the kitchen floor, clutching her apron and crying quietly into the fabric that had once been her disguise. That night, she wandered back to the bakery. The lights were off, but through the window she saw Noah, sleeves rolled, shaping dough with steady hands. She hesitated at the door, afraid to face him, but then he looked up. For a moment neither moved. Finally, he opened the door. The warm smell of bread hit her like memory. You look tired, he said softly. I lost the foundation, she whispered. Gregory took everything. He wiped his hands, stepping closer. You did not lose everything. I lost you, she said, and her voice broke. He hesitated, then handed her a loaf of fresh bread. Then start again. You taught me that sometimes things have to break before they can rise. She blinked, stunned. Are you forgiving me? I am not sure yet, he admitted. But I do not like the bakery quiet without you. They stood there in silence, the smell of yeast and warmth filling the air. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. If you want proof Gregory staged your scandal, meet me at the old Whitmore office tonight. Noah read the message over her shoulder. It could be a trap. It could be the truth, she replied. And if it is, I have to know. He sighed, grabbing his jacket. Then you are not going alone. Hours later, they arrived at the abandoned office building downtown. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint hum of old machines. A file sat on the table, stamped with the foundation's logo. Elena opened it and gasped. Bank transfers, forged signatures, proof Gregory had stolen millions meant for charity. He was using the scandal to cover this, she whispered. Noah's jaw tightened. Then we end it. The next morning, Elena walked into the boardroom again, but this time with Noah beside her and the evidence in her hands. The cameras flashed, but she did not flinch. You accused me of fraud, she said, her voice clear and steady. But the only thief in this room is Gregory Vaughn. She dropped the file on the table. Silence fell as the directors read the documents. Gregory turned pale. Security escorted him out moments later, his protests echoing down the hall. When it was over, Elena turned to Noah. "You did not have to come," she said. "I wanted to," he replied. "Contracts can end, but promises, those are real." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "So what now?" He looked at her, a slow smile forming. "Now we bake something new." Outside, the morning light spilled through the windows, and for the first time in months, it felt like the beginning of something honest. Spring turned into summer, and for the first time in a long while, peace settled over both of their lives. The scandal faded as quickly as it had come. The headlines were replaced by newer dramas, and Elena no longer had to hide behind false smiles or empty interviews. Gregory Vaughn faced charges for fraud, and the foundation was returned to her name, but she insisted on something different. She refused to call it the Whitmore Foundation anymore. "It should belong to everyone, not just my family," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "From now on, it will be called the Hearts and Hands Fund." Noah had been rebuilding the bakery in the meantime. With help from local volunteers, he turned it into a warm space that doubled as a small community kitchen on weekends. Every Saturday, Elena joined him there, hair tied back, apron dusted with flour. They baked bread, served coffee, and laughed more than they had in months. People started calling them the couple who built love out of dough. One morning, as the first light spilled across the counter, Elena leaned against the window and watched Noah knead the bread. "You know," she said softly, "we never actually ended the contract." He paused, glancing up. "Do we need to?" She smiled, shaking her head. "No. I guess not." Later that day, a letter arrived from the city clerk's office, reminding them that their 6-month term was about to expire. Noah held it in his flour-dusted hands, reading the words quietly. "So this is it," he said. "The deal is officially over." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "We can sign the annulment tomorrow." He folded the letter and placed it aside. "Or," he said, "we could sign something else." That evening, as they closed the bakery, Noah handed her a small box wrapped in brown paper. "What is this?" she asked, untying the twine. Inside was a simple gold band, not flashy, not expensive, but real. "It is not a contract," he said. "It is a promise. No clauses, no signatures. Just us." Her breath caught. "Noah, you once told me love was just another risk," he said softly. "So let us risk it properly." Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the light from the ovens. She slipped the ring onto her finger, her hands trembling. "Yes," she whispered. "But this time, no lawyers allowed." He laughed quietly, pulling her close. "Deal." The next day, the bakery reopened under a new sign, Apron and Heart by Noah and Elena. The grand reopening was small but beautiful. The townspeople came, filling the room with laughter and the smell of cinnamon rolls. Children drew hearts on paper napkins, and older couples toasted with steaming mugs of cocoa. Elena stood behind the counter, looking at the life she and Noah had built, not from status or wealth, but from effort, patience, and a love that refused to quit. When the evening came, a local reporter arrived to do a feature on the bakery's rebirth. "You two started as a fake marriage, right?" he asked, half joking. Noah looked at Elena, then back at the reporter. "We started as strangers pretending to belong in the same story," he said. "But I guess the story decided to make it real." The reporter smiled. "So what is your secret?" Elena glanced at Noah and said simply, "Flour, honesty, and a little faith." That night, after the guests left and the lights dimmed, they sat on the floor, backs against the counter, sharing a loaf of bread still warm from the oven. Outside, the town was quiet, the streetlights glowing like stars. Elena rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "You know, I used to think my mother's legacy was about money or prestige. But it was not. It was about kindness." Noah brushed his thumb over her hand. "Then I guess you kept her legacy alive." She smiled. "With you." He kissed the top of her head, and for a moment, time stood still. The ovens hummed softly, the scent of fresh bread wrapping around them like a promise. They had started with a contract, but what they built was something the world could never write on paper. And as dawn approached, with their hands still intertwined, Elena whispered the words that would become the bakery's new slogan, made with heart. Served with love. Autumn came early that year, bringing a golden calm to the town. The bakery had become a small landmark by then, a place where people came not only for bread but for comfort. Elena and Noah worked side by side, their movements effortless, as if they had been partners all their lives. The air was filled with cinnamon and laughter, and for a while, it felt like nothing could touch them. But life has a way of testing what is real. One afternoon, Elena received a letter from a law firm in New York. It was about her late father's estate, a final review of his holdings and the companies tied to the Whitmore name. She hesitated before opening it. The letter revealed that she still owned part of the Whitmore Group, and without her signature, a new merger could not proceed. It also warned that the company's future was in danger. That night, she sat on the bakery's rooftop with Noah, holding the letter in her hands. "They want me to come back," she said quietly. "To fix what my father left behind." Noah looked at her, the wind tugging at his hair. "Do you want to?" She shook her head slowly. "I do not know. That world nearly broke me, but if I walk away, hundreds of employees could lose their jobs." He took her hand gently. "You do not owe them the version of you that suffered. But maybe you can build something better from the inside." She smiled faintly. "You always make it sound simple." He grinned. "That is because I deal with flour. It listens better than people." They sat in silence, watching the streetlights flicker below. A week later, Elena flew to New York, leaving Noah to run the bakery alone. The skyscrapers greeted her with their cold steel and endless noise. Her old last name was on every building, every contract, every whispered conversation. The board welcomed her back politely but warily, unsure if she was there to reclaim power or dismantle it. During the first meeting, an older director asked bluntly, "Why return now, after abandoning us?" Elena stood tall, her voice calm. "Because leadership is not about control. It is about care. I came back to remind this company what it was built for." Her words silenced the room. Over the next weeks, she worked tirelessly, restructuring departments, cutting waste, and reopening community programs her father had once shut down. The press called it the Whitmore Redemption. But every night, when the lights dimmed in her office, she missed the smell of dough and the warmth of Noah's quiet presence. One evening, while reviewing files, she found a note tucked between the pages of her planner. It was written in Noah's handwriting, "Do not forget to eat." A smile touched her lips. She looked out the window, the city glowing beneath her like an ocean of stars. The next morning, she called a press conference. "I have decided," she announced, "to transfer 50% of Whitmore Group's profits into the Hearts and Hands Fund. Wealth should not be stored. It should circulate, like air." The announcement stunned the media and the markets. Some investors pulled back, but most stayed, inspired by her conviction. Back in Willow Creek, Noah watched the news on the bakery's small television. The customers cheered when her face appeared on screen. "Looks like she is saving the world again," someone joked. Noah smiled softly. "That is just who she is." A week later, Elena returned home quietly, without warning. The bakery doorbell chimed, and Noah looked up from the counter, disbelief flooding his face. "You are back early," he said. She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I missed the only place that ever felt like home." He wiped his hands and walked toward her slowly. "How did it go?" She exhaled. "Better than I thought. But it was missing something." "What?" "You." He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "You turned a billion-dollar empire upside down, and you still came back for a baker." She stepped closer, smiling. "I did not come back for a baker. I came back for my husband." He looked at her for a long moment, then pulled her into his arms. The scent of flower and vanilla wrapped around them. Outside, the first leaves of fall drifted past the window, golden and weightless. Inside, everything felt certain again. For the first time in her life, Elena was not chasing approval, or redemption, or legacy. She was simply home. The seasons changed once more, and by winter, the bakery had become more than just a local favorite. It was a gathering place, a symbol of what compassion could build. Elena's decision to give half of the Whitmore Group's profits to the Hearts and Hands Fund had inspired similar acts across the country. News outlets called her the heiress who baked her redemption, but in Willow Creek, she was simply Elena, the woman who smiled behind the counter and handed out bread like kindness itself. Noah watched her from the doorway one evening, as she laughed with a group of volunteers. There was flour on her cheek and a light in her eyes that he had not seen since the day they met. Later, as they closed up, she found him leaning against the counter, lost in thought. "What is going on in that head of yours?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then said, "You have built something incredible, Lena. But I know you. You will not stop here." She smiled knowingly. "You think I cannot balance two worlds?" "No," he said. "I think you will change both." She reached out and brushed a bit of flour from his shirt. "Then stay beside me when I do." The following month, Elena received an invitation to speak at a global charity summit in Paris. The foundation had been nominated for an international award. She wanted Noah to come with her, but he refused at first. "You belong on those stages," he said. "I belong here, making sure this place still smells like home when you come back." But as the date approached, he changed his mind. "Maybe," he said one morning, "it is time I see how far a baker can go." Their trip to Paris was short but unforgettable. Elena spoke on stage about integrity, second chances, and the power of ordinary kindness. Noah stood in the crowd, proud and quiet, his hands still dusted with flour from a morning baking session in the hotel kitchen. When she finished, the audience stood in ovation. That night, as they walked along the Seine, the city lights reflecting in the water, Elena looked at him and said, "I used to think love was something that demanded proof, grand gestures, sacrifices, conditions. But it is not, is it?" He shook his head. "It is just showing up. Over and over. No contracts, no stage lights. Just showing up." She smiled and slipped her arm through his. "Then promise me one thing." "Anything," he said. "When we go home, do not let me forget where we started." He looked at her, warmth flickering in his eyes. "The bakery?" "Yes," she said softly. "But also that moment in the rain when I asked you to marry me and you thought I was insane." He laughed. "You were insane. And I am glad you were." The wind carried their laughter across the river. Back in Willow Creek, weeks later, the bakery window displayed a new sign handwritten in soft gold, "The best things we build are the ones we build together." It was not just a motto. It was their story. By the time spring returned, Elena and Noah had built something far greater than either of them had imagined. The bakery was thriving, the Hearts and Hands Fund had expanded internationally, and for once, life moved at a pace that felt both humble and full. But with every success came new pressure. Reporters began showing up again, asking if Elena planned to rejoin the Whitmore Group as its official CEO. Investors from abroad wanted meetings, proposals, interviews. She declined them all, choosing instead to stay close to home, to the quiet heartbeat of the bakery. Yet a part of her knew that eventually, she would have to make a decision about her legacy. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the last customers left, she sat on the counter, her apron dusted with flour, deep in thought. Noah leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her. "You have that look again," he said gently. "The one that means you are trying to save the whole world." She sighed, smiling faintly. "Maybe I just do not know how to stop." He stepped closer. "You do not have to stop. Just do not forget to live while you are saving it." She looked at him, her heart softening. How did I get so lucky with you? Luck has nothing to do with it, he said. You chose this. You chose me. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from the Whitmore board. They wanted Elena to take back her position, to lead the company under her new principles of social reform. It was everything she had once dreamed of and everything she had walked away from. That night, she and Noah sat on the rooftop again, the air filled with the smell of baking bread. They want me to come back, she said quietly. To fix things. To make it right. And what do you want? He asked. She looked out over the town, where the bakery lights glowed softly. I want to build something that does not need my name to matter. Noah reached for her hand. Then maybe you already have. She smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. You always know what to say. No, he murmured. I just know you. The next day, Elena called the board with her decision. I am not returning, she said firmly. But I will help mentor whoever does. This company should not belong to a last name. It should belong to the people who work for it. Her words spread quickly through the media, but this time, there were no scandals, no chaos, only respect. The world had learned to see her not as a runaway heiress, but as a woman who rebuilt herself from scratch. That evening, when she returned home, Noah had set a small dinner table in the bakery, candles flickering against the glass. What is this? She asked, laughing. A celebration, he said. For doing what your father never could, letting go. She sat down, the golden light reflecting in her eyes. You know, she whispered, when we signed that contract, I thought I was saving my mother's foundation. I never thought I would end up saving myself. He smiled. I did not save you, Lena. You did that. She reached across the table, taking his hand. No, she said softly, we did it together. Outside, the wind carried the scent of fresh bread through the quiet streets, and the small golden sign on the bakery window gleamed under the moonlight, a testament to everything they had chosen: love over legacy, truth over illusion, and the kind of partnership that no contract could ever define. A full year had passed since that first night of rain when everything began. The bakery now stood as a quiet beacon at the corner of Willow Creek, its sign glinting softly in the morning light. Inside, the shelves were lined with loaves still warm from the oven, and the smell of cinnamon and fresh dough drifted through the air. Elena moved behind the counter, humming softly, while Noah adjusted the flowers by the window. It was the anniversary of their bakery's opening, but it also marked something more personal: the day their fake marriage had become something real. As the first customers arrived, they found a small handwritten card placed near the register. It read, "To everyone who believes in second chances, thank you for being part of ours." That afternoon, the mayor stopped by to present them with a local business award. The crowd gathered outside, clapping as Elena stepped forward to speak. Her voice was clear, calm, and full of warmth. A year ago, I thought I had lost everything, she said. My name, my place, my purpose. But what I found here among flour, coffee, and kindness was something money could never buy. I learned that leadership is not about power. It is about people. And love, the real kind, does not demand perfection. It simply asks that we show up for each other. The applause that followed was soft but heartfelt. Noah joined her at the front, sliding an arm around her waist. You forgot something, he whispered. She smiled. What is that? You forgot to mention that you are a terrible morning person, he teased. The crowd laughed, and so did she, her head resting briefly on his shoulder. After the ceremony, when the guests had left and the sun dipped low, they sat outside the bakery with 2 cups of cocoa. The street was quiet except for the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Do you ever think about how strange it all was? She asked. The contract, the lies, the chaos? Noah took a sip and nodded. Strange, yes. But if it had not happened, we would not be here. She looked at him, her eyes soft. Do you ever regret it? Not for a second, he said. Every mistake led us to this. They watched the lights flicker on across the town, the world moving gently forward. A delivery truck passed, and one of the workers waved through the window. Elena waved back, smiling. "You know," she said, "my mother used to tell me that the best recipes are the ones you make twice, once to get them wrong, and once to get them right." Noah grinned. "Then I guess we finally got it right." She leaned her head against his shoulder, closing her eyes. "We did." The wind stirred the golden letters on their bakery sign, apron and heart made with love. It glowed softly under the lamplight, a promise kept and a story finished. As the last light of evening faded, Noah whispered, "Happy anniversary, Mrs. Carter." Elena smiled, her voice barely above a breath. "Best mistake we ever made." The screen of the story faded to black, but their laughter lingered in the air, warm and full, like the scent of bread that never really leaves once it has been shared with love.